Hey everybody, this is Jeff Phillips at Accounting Fly. I'm calling in from Pensacola, Florida. We've got Bruce Phillips, Managing Director and CEO of HPC. He's based in Atlanta, but it's a completely virtual firm. Bruce, what's it like in Atlanta today?
Not too bad, about 60 degrees,
Oh,
not raining. I've already been outside, so yep.
that's very mild, I would say. Well, very cool. So we're talking about remote work today. So as you can see, Bruce, well, you might not be able to tell, but Bruce is working out of his home office in Atlanta. I'm going to tell you about this fantastic firm, HPC, and Bruce in a minute. Want to get you guys involved first, though. Hey, everybody. So on your GoToWebinar control panel, you've got a question pad where you can write in questions. I'd love it if you said hey or tell me where you're calling in from today, and we'd love to just make that connection with you real quick. Um, so use your panel. Give me your location: Detroit, St. Louis. We got
Nice.
Bruce in Atlanta, Dallas. I used to live in Dallas. Thanks for chiming in. I used to live at Midway Road and Northwest Highway, and over by Ball's Hamburgers. Phoenix, Omaha, Pennsylvania, Macon. That's Macon, Georgia. Bruce, not too far from you, man. Washington D.C., Huntsville, Alabama, Alfred, New York. That's Western New York State. Good morning from Arizona, Fort Worth, New Mexico. We got San Antonio, all over the country. That's kind of interesting given the theme that we're talking about today, right?
Sure
So,
thing.
if you've been on Accounting Fly webinars before, um, typically we are just having conversations about topics that are important to you. This is really cool because I'm not presenting this. We have someone who is given who has an amazing expertise in answering a singular question, which is working remote right for you? And I would give a subtitle to that, that this is the trend. This is where things are headed in our profession, and you may want to get around and get ahead of it. HPC is a firm that Bruce Phillips is a managing director and CEO of. Bruce is going to tell you more about their firm. But what's interesting about HPC is this was a completely office-based firm with 7 employees based in Atlanta that has transitioned to completely virtual with 26 employees across lots of states. How many states do you have people
I'm
in?
not, I haven't counted, somewhere between 10 and 14.
Okay. You have gone through this transition from completely office to completely virtual, which is fascinating. And in fact, when we were at the Xero Xero demo at SleaderCon, they made you stand up and talk about your experience because I know you're a Xero Platinum partner. And guys, Bruce was in the Big Four, was an audit manager for a couple of years at Ernst and Young, and spent some more years at Ernst Young before he reached that point. Technology focused, technology driven, and that is critical because this is so very much where our entire profession is headed, and it's time to get ahead of the curve. So, what we're going to do is have a conversation. And I hope that now that you know where the question panel is, you'll fire off questions for us. And I'm going to ask them of Bruce. I'm going to stick around. No slides. It's a conversation. So 3 or 4 questions, Bruce, and then we'll just take it from there. So my first question, Bruce, is can you just give us a little bit of your history and you're now CEO of this firm. How did you get there?
Sure. So I left Ernst& Young in about 1990. I founded, it was actually was called Harshman Phillips and Company in 1992. I co-founded it with another gentleman. And so the firm has been around 23 years. And for the first, I'd say 18, we were a traditional CPA firm, audit, tax, not a whole lot of accounting and back office stuff or bookkeeping. Um, but uh, but through some happenstance over the years, I got involved in construction and real estate and technology companies and CFO. And at the end of the day, it was about 5 years ago, I said, I want to have recurring revenue like many of my clients do, and we didn't really have that. So I started doing the back office stuff, and this was at the beginning of the kind of the technology focused firm. Started doing QuickBooks, hosted, uh, and then in 2011, I actually met the founder from Xero when he was here from New Zealand, one of the first times he was here, and kind of jumped in full blown and kind of built I don't want to say bookkeeping, we'll just say kind of back office bookkeeping, cloud accounting practice over the last 4 years now. Um, that's kind of the history. And as Jeff had said, I laughed. 2 years ago, I owned my office building, and I had 7 employees sitting in 7 different offices, barely talking to each other.
Mm.
And over the last 2 years, my office building's on the market. It's empty. We've got these people spread out all over the place, and we've grown. Actually, I don't think any of the other 6 beside me are still there. I think it's everyone is new in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Certainly in the last 3 years. That I'm sure of.
Goodness.
So
in this, how long was the transition? So, I mean, the firm itself has been around, but how long has the transition been from when you made the decision to go virtual?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if I really made the decision. I think it kind of happened. So, this person left, and we had a person working from home, and another person started working from home. And the first 2 remote employees we had came from circumstances. So, for example, we were working with Xero, and it was pretty early on, and I think she was the first one. It was a person in New Zealand, and they had Xero experience and been working with Xero for years. And they talked to the managing director of their firm, who talked to the founder of Xero in New Zealand, who called the U.S. president, and he emailed me and said, "Are you interested in talking to this woman? She's moving here from New Zealand." I was like, "Sure, she's got experience. That's fantastic." And it turned out she was going to live in Wisconsin. And I was like, "Okay, all right, yeah, we'll go ahead and bring her on." And so she was our first remote employee in Wisconsin. But we did it because she was already experienced in the software we were using, and we didn't really know about remote employees at the time. I got a few people working from home in Atlanta. So we kind of figured it out. And then I had another one that was a client, a CFO of a client in the Bay Area, who was going to leave her company, and basically it's actually a venture capital firm. They wanted to outsource their entire back office, so I hired her. And she was in California. And then it just kind of steamrolled from there. That was the first 2, and the next thing you know, there was a 3rd one and a 4th one. So there really wasn't a conscious decision to do it. It kind of happened.
Do you have an office?
I don't anymore. No.
Oh.
I work out of my condo here in Atlanta. I work out of co-working spaces in certain cities. Like we have a Regis office. We do WeWork. Some other places in Atlanta. Most of the people actually work out of their homes, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, well let's get into that then. Can you start walking us through just what a remote firm looks like, and then I'm going to start sort of plugging away at why is maybe that the new model. But just give us the big picture of what life at a remote firm is all about.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting is, you have to stay connected. That's the biggest challenge. How do you stay connected? And we've done it through the use of technology. So it started with Office 365 using Link. You can see who's on and off. People who are on all day. You can think they have a little dot next to them, and
yep.
You can IM them and video call them. You were on the video calls all day, right? That's how it started. And then slowly but surely, we added more and more tools to stay connected. We have a new director of technology now that came on board in June, and we use Slack, we use Asana, all these things that tech companies use, and actually think about us more like a tech company than an accounting firm in many cases. But it's all about staying connected and communicating, right? So when I go someplace and they see me work for the day and they see you're on the phone all day, and I was like, well, how else am I going to talk to anybody?
Right.
So most of it's video calls, but I'm on the phone all day.
We use Slack very seriously here. We don't use Asana. For project management, we use Trello. Have you ever tried Trello?
I've not tried it, but I've heard of it. Yeah. We have project management that's more in line with professional services firm. It's not so much accounting firm, but all of those tools, whether it be the project management or we do it by communication, project management, and then kind of efficiency kind of stuff. So that's how we kind of break them down. And then, of course, there's all the production tools like Xero and Spotlight and Receipt Bank and Bill.com and other things we use with our clients, which are also all cloud-based kind of products.
So what else can you tell us about a remote firm? So you have to stay connected, and
Yep.
you have people all over the country. How do you tie it? How do you tie working together when everybody's working from home?
Right. So one of the things we started doing early is just the basic calendar sharing. So I think one of the benefits, because we're going to talk about benefits, is we've had people. I think last year we had three different families move because they could. One moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina. Another one moved from the Bay Area to Southern California, and they did it for cost of living, quality of life, schools. And I think it's pretty neat that they could actually do that without having to worry about their job. Um, so a couple of them, like for example, um, it's all about team communication and being respectful. Several of them actually pick up their kids every day at 3 o'clock, and it's on their calendar, and the whole team knows between 3 and 4 o'clock they're out. Yet at the same time, I'll get emails from California because they're working at 11 o'clock at night, and my inbox gets filled. So so it's about being kind of where you want to be, working when you want to work, as long as the work gets done. And this kind of gets into the whole CPA accounting thing too. Is about it's not so much about the time, it's about the product and the client. As long as the work's getting done and the clients are happy, I don't care where you work and when you work, but you need to communicate it.
So that's obviously a major shift from, I think, how most firms operate and manage people. So this is interesting, but when we recently did a survey of young CPAs and college students majoring in accounting and asked them what were the factors in choosing an employer. And it was, by and large, work-life balance was the number one. It was what was the number one thing that you are going to factor in your decision? Work-life balance was 60%. And number two, so compensation was the third one, 9%. I think that speaks to a growing dissatisfaction of work inside the traditional public accounting firm model, and it seems like you're tapping into that and offering a lot of flexibility.
And there's definitely flexibility, but it's interesting when I talk to one of my management team, we talk about flexibility doesn't mean you don't have to work hard. There's a
Yeah.
big difference between work-life balance and not working hard. We still expect you to work really hard and work with the team and fill in for other people and do all that, and all of our people do. And I keep reminding them that it's a two-way street. You don't get all of this without giving something. So you need to participate and you need to be part of the team. And when one person goes out because of the tools that we use, another person can step in and do their job. Great example. I'll tell this. One of our employees just went to Japan for 3 weeks,
Hmm.
and he said, and I didn't even have to ask him. He said, I'm going to take my stuff, and every morning I'm going to go in and do what I need to do. And he's an important cog in our workflow on the front end of getting things set up. And we've been fortunate. We sign up a lot of clients, and he's kind of one of the first two pieces of the cog. So if that didn't happen, everything else would get stalled. We didn't even have to ask him. He did it every morning. He logged in and made sure that the cog was keep going, and then he took his time off. And the other things that he could offload, other people fill in and did some of that work that wasn't so important. But he got to spend 3 weeks in Japan. I said, okay.
Yeah, he got it done. And
He got
I
it
guess
done.
that's yeah. And so you said if you're going to get something like flexibility, you've got to give something, and that's hard work, obviously. But I guess what it depends on, I guess the variable, it doesn't matter when the work gets done. It's really, you can set a schedule. You're going to have to deliver the results, but it doesn't have to get done between 8 and 5.
Correct. And you get obviously we have workflow deliveries and things have to be done on time, but they don't have to be done between 9 and 5. Absolutely not. Um, but we also ask that you communicate so everybody knows how to find you and how to communicate you, and you have to figure out how to be able to keep people accountable too. I like to think that our people are all, I call them all superstars, but they don't need to be supervised. We're kind of flat, and if either the work's getting done or it's not, then you know when it's not getting done, and you know when there's issues with the clients because they complain or it ends up coming to me somehow.
What have you learned about accountability in building a firm where it's about results and not hours? How do you hold people accountable as a manager, and how do you make sure that, I guess, it's all getting done? How do you control? How
It's
do you
been
have
real.
controls?
Yeah, it's been really hard, and we have this debate all the time amongst our management team. We spread the work around, and we kind of have our KPIs of each accountant is supposed to manage X dollars of recurring revenue. That's kind of how we do it. We have a project management system that's completely transparent. Everybody can see how we're doing on every project, so you can pull up a list of this person's handling 30 clients, and if all their clients are turning red every month based on the budgets, you know that something's not right. They're taking too long, or if all the tasks aren't getting checked off and it shows that they're past due, that the things aren't getting done on time. That's how we manage it.
And I imagine that took you some time to figure out, right?
And,
Well,
and you need a tool to do it.
and I think these first few questions are from the purview of you as a firm leader, and then we're going to talk about what are the pros and cons as an employee, as someone who's looking for a job. But backing back up to just the point of view of a firm, what have been the biggest benefits to you as the leader of a firm in terms of making the switch and having remote workforce?
The biggest benefit is really obvious. It's when somebody good comes along, you can hire them. They don't have to be in this. They don't have to be here. So if somebody's come along, moving to Wisconsin, and they happen to already have a 5-year head start on the software that we're going to use, I can just hire them. That's by far the biggest.
Are your clients remote as well?
Clients all over. Actually, I stopped counting. We're in the process of putting a map on our website. I think we have north of 30 states now that we have clients in. But more importantly, we actually have clients all over the world. So last count, we had clients on 6 continents, including Africa. So it doesn't matter where they are. Now, the time zone thing you got to manage. I found a little tool for my phone called World Time Buddy, where I can put in all the different places that we're working, and I can see what time it is, like on a chart, because that's the hardest thing. But other than that, it's easy. That and Skype and Google Hangouts and all that stuff. Go to meeting.
So, I look at this and I think a couple of thoughts. One is if you have happy employees, you will have happy customers and a successful business. I'm assuming the impact on your staff has been tremendous in terms of just satisfaction working there. And nowhere's perfect, but is it better than how it used to be?
Oh yeah, way better. The relationship is better. They're happy. We haven't actually have gone so far. Knock wood. I think our employees are so happy that we actually use them as recruiting tools.
Sure.
So and we use them as part of this whole team thing. So when someone's going to come work for the firm or getting interviewed, they actually, I don't want to say talk to everybody anymore, but they talk to many key people before they come on board. So number one, each employee can see if they're a good fit to work together. But if they can't work with them, they're not going to be a fit within the team. And then also it gives the prospect a good chance to hear from an employee, not me, what it's like to work here.
Do you have the opinion that this is going to become the new model for public accounting firms?
I think accountants are probably maybe the last ones to do this. The accountants are kind of stuck in their ways. They are. We're slow on the curve, which has been good for me. But
right.
But no, I definitely think it's becoming more and more, and I meet more and more people who are doing it, or more and more people have remote employees, maybe not fully remote, but they have remote employees, or they have people that, or at minimum, they telecommute a couple days a week. You know what I mean? At a minimum. And the reason they do that is because now they use the tools and they use cloud, platforms and cloud tools basically that allow the employees to do that.
Yeah,
you couldn't do it 5 years ago.
I think that I think one of the basic lessons of why we did the webinar is that this is going to increase constantly. Even the brick and mortar firms that we work with are trying to hire remote staff, even if it's seasonal. They're not sure how to do it. They're not sure where to find it. But so the basic underpinning of all of this is that technology has changed everything and allows us to have remote firms, allows us to build firms like yours. And I really want you to go off on the technology and the specifics that you guys use, not the communication tools, but the accounting tools that you use, like Xero, and start to introduce the audience to tools like that.
Sure. So as part of doing the whole, building a recurring revenue practice, one of it is doing the back office stuff. You can call it bookkeeping, you can call it accounting, We actually do virtual CFO also, and then of course even the tax. I still got a couple people who want to come and drop their stuff off to our office. They're going to be in for a big surprise this year when they drive up and there's nobody there. they're legacy clients. We call them legacy clients, and we don't have a whole lot of that anymore. But people that we've been doing business with for 20 years. But obviously all the newer clients, obviously know, we have a system that we work with and a process as to how to work with us and how to get us documents and how to communicate with us. But so from an accounting standpoint, we're a Xero shop, and we still have a couple clients on QuickBooks from prior to 5 years ago, but all the new clients now are going on Xero, which allows for all the collaboration, bank feeds, single ledger, client and us going in at the same time to put notes back and forth, and there's never a need to send files or send reports or things like that. It's all cloud-based. But the way Xero works is it's an open API infrastructure, so basically they have an ecosystem that allows other software companies to write software that basically allows data to go back and forth seamlessly without having to do anything. So for example, we use Bill.com for accounts payable and bill management. We use Gusto for payroll. We're starting to work with Zenefits for HR and benefits. We use Spotlight reporting for like dashboards. We use Receipt Bank for receipts and basically, I'll say remote data entry, eliminating data entry. We use Expensify for expense reporting, and you can kind of see we have a tool for everything.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch more, but I would say those are the key ones.
And so all of these, you weave these together to probably inside of a process for every single client that you have, and that process is probably unique to HPC or maybe even every individual accountant, but they all work together, and the endpoint is Xero for all of this, right?
Xero is the ledger and kind of the centerpiece, but it's interesting that you talk about that workflow. I define workflow as kind of from lead, the first lead, all the way to kind of doing the work. So we have a process. We break it down between leads, turn into prospects, turn into sales, turn into engagement, turn into onboarding, turn into implementation, turn into accounting, turn into tax. And you kind of go through the whole thing. We have a process for everyone with workflow, with checklists, and a tool or two for each of those steps along the way. And the idea is that they all talk to each other, that the data just kind of moves. So we use HubSpot for our marketing and lead management. And that's where we do everything. Our website's connected to HubSpot.
Right.
Our blogging is connected to HubSpot. We hooked up Sidekick to it, so I can see when people are opening the emails and what pages they look at on the website. And then we basically go into something called Pandadoc, which is for engagement letter management, where we send out all of our service agreements and engagement letters. Again, you can see when people look at it, you can make comments back and forth, electronic signatures, the whole way, right? They sign up, they immediately, 3 or 4 people get notified. This person sets up the projects. This person sets up the access to Smart Vault, which is the way we securely transfer documents. This person does the invoicing. This person does the payments. And then it goes on to the onboarding person who's going to gather all the stuff and kind of welcome them and bring them onto the firm, get everything before they get handed off to the person who's actually going to set them up.
Wow.
Or convert them to our QuickBooks. And it's boom, 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 boom. All documented, all process driven. You can take a person out and put another person in. And that's why they can do it remotely.
And that's why they can do it remotely, because you've hammered the process.
And the tools.
Right, and the tools.
So.
Okay, what is Spotlight? I want to single out one of these because I wasn't familiar with it. I know all the other ones.
Spotlight is founder's name is Richard Francis, New Zealand company. He was an accountant, an early accountant on with Xero, basically, but it's called Spotlight Reporting. It's basically dashboards that sit on top of Xero or QuickBooks. Data moves from the accounting software into there. Can give you a snapshot, but it's visual. There's charts and graphs, KPIs, things like that. But it's basically a dashboard driven. They also have something called forecasting, where the data comes out and you can actually forecast based on it. But again, you're not having to input anything. It all flows once you hook it up.
So Spotlight reminds me of a tool we use called Fathom. Is it similar to Fathom?
Very similar. So Spotlight, Fathom, Crunchboard's kind of all the same.
So in the technology is important, right? The technology is important for you if you're thinking about a remote job, because you're going to be needing to know these items. I mean, these technologies, and also the process is important because it's without the process, this doesn't work. Especially a remote company, we're half remote as well. So, all right, Bruce, I want to shift gears and let's talk about for you. You're an accountant, you're a CPA. You hire accountants and bookkeepers for your remote company, and I want to spend the bulk of our time giving attention to the CPAs on the call, the accountants on the call who are either looking for a remote job, considering this, and wondering the pros and cons. So you've seen this now for years, but what are the pros and cons of working remote? What can you tell someone who's thinking about this as making a decision to do this? What would you advise them?
So obviously the pros are you can live wherever you want to work. I mean, live wherever you want to live.
Right.
The pros are when you're not in an office, you don't have to worry if you need to pick up your kids during the day, as long as the company you're working with, kind of understands and that's the way they work and they have that work-life balance and culture that works. We have, another pro is, obviously the commute. We've had some people who are like they had ridiculous commutes where they were, and just the getting rid of the commuting was huge for them. Well, many of them were willing to take pay cuts to do it, to be honest with you, because they gained back an hour and a half a day.
Thank you.
Obviously, being able to do things when you need to and not being in an office is huge. And some people actually say that, not the distractions are way less, where people are coming in and interrupting and talking to you all day. Although now the distractions are probably more the social media things like Slack, but you can turn it off. You can't turn somebody off walking in your office and standing there, right?
Yeah.
So that's your door. But that's not the culture we want. So, but those are the pros. Am I missing any?
No, I would add one is that you're probably a progressive organization that is technology forward and process driven, and I'm going to ask you about building culture in a minute, but I like to work in companies like that. I'm attracted to that, and I would think that's another pro.
So you're saying the pro is that only companies that are like that are going to do this, and then you'll be working for a company like that.
Yes,
and we definitely are that. I've been told that. So
yeah. So what about the cons?
So the cons are kind of interesting, and as we've kind of hired people, and not everybody we brought on has worked out. So a couple things that we do is, number one, we're more interested in someone that's going to fit our culture than the skills. That's number one. What is it? You hire for attitude and culture. You can train skills, right? So a couple of the things that we found is, not everybody is cut out to working on their own in their home. They're not self-motivated. They just don't have the discipline to be able to do it. It's not for everybody. We've seen that where people just haven't fit, and it becomes pretty evident within the first 60 days. So now we try to make sure that that's not the case. The second one is dedicated workspace. So we had, as you go remote, you start thinking about things you never thought about before, like where are they going to work? Well, are we going to get them a WeWork office for $500 a month, or a Regis office? Are they going to work out of their house? Are they going to work off their kitchen table with their kids, crawling all over them when they're working while they're on video calls with clients? So now we actually have a requirement in our handbook that you have to have a dedicated workspace for exactly that reason.
Right.
Another interesting thing is the whole tech savvy thing. So we've interviewed some people, they have to be able to communicate. You've heard us, everyone communicates seamlessly and a lot. If they have a hard time getting on a Skype call with you at the beginning, and can't turn on the video and don't know how to do it, probably not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the things that we've learned along the way. So I feel those are probably the biggest cons, or self-discipline, dedicated workspace, and actually just being able to function and be remotely,
We actually had a question that came in that said, if you work from home, how do you stay motivated? And I almost would kind of transition that question a little bit of like, how do you it's all about energy management, and how do you structure a life working from home where you don't, one, always work because it's right there. That was one of my problems when I worked from home, and or two, how do you not be distracted all the time, and distraction management, things like that. So like,
Working from home, the turning off is hard. I actually have got to be disciplined. I'll sit here and I'll find out I've been here for 6 hours at 5 o'clock and it's 11 p.m. You got to be disciplined and you got to shut off, and that's part of this whole work-life balance. Everybody deals with that differently. Um, in terms of being motivated, I mean, selfishly and maybe even egotistically, I mean, from what I hear, the people that work at HPC, they all love what they do. They love working with each other. It's not a job. It's more like it's kind of funny when they talk about it. It's kind of weird. It's different than a regular accounting firm.
right.
And that took time to create. They don't have any problem getting motivated. Not from what I'm hearing. But it's hiring the right people that are like that. We hired a tax person recently, thanks to you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is they just love tax. They're a tax geek. You can call them whatever you want, but they just love tax. They can't wait to get up in the morning and talk tax. Now they have the tools and the team and the clients to do it. So.
Do people who work remote feel like they're part of a team? Well, really, that's your job. And how do you build culture so that people who never see each other or almost don't see each other physically feel like they're part of a team?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good one. So when we started having the remote team, when we had those first two people, we basically had a team call every week. And I required everyone to be on video. And well, I was like, some of the staff didn't want to be on video because you can say whether it's their clothes or their hair or their makeup, whatever. I'm not going to, you get what I'm talking about. I made it a requirement that they get on the video every week. So we actually had a video call every week, which was great. It built the team, it built camaraderie, it helped with the culture. And they complained about it, but it was what I said 1 day a week, 1 hour, you can freaking get dressed and do whatever you need to do. And I don't care what you do the other 39 hours.
Yeah.
But 1 hour you can do that. The challenge has been, as we've grown, we can't have 26 people on a call every week. It would cost us a fortune in most productivity.
Yeah.
So we've actually gone to, and as we've grown, we've gotten, I would say, departmentalized. So we've departmentalized the culture and came up with an org chart. And now we have an accounting team, a tax team, implementation team, sales and marketing team, and administration team. And we all have our weekly calls. And then what we do is we all get together once a month on the video. And that's pretty cool. The last one we had, I think we had 24 people on there. And it's the only time they get to see everybody. And sometimes, the way the systems work, you can't see everybody at one time, so you got to be quiet and let someone else speak. And one time we had my former sales guy show up with I'm going to call it a muscle shirt, for lack of a better term. And he was taking crap for the next year. But anyways, it was funny, and everyone got a kick out of it, We said no muscle shirts on the anyhow.
That's probably
just, now we have people wearing their hats, their football hats, whether it be the Broncos or the Patriots or the Raiders. But you kind of get the idea. So we did it with the video calls. And then, of course, basically just stressing teamwork and about people filling in with each other and working with each other.
Right.
And it's my understanding they all communicate a hell of a lot more. It's been hard for me because it used to be I had a lot of one-on-one time with everybody when we had 7 people, and it's impossible for me to get one-on-one time with 25 people all the time. It's impossible. So I've made actually a concerted effort, the people that I don't get to talk to as part of the weekly calls, that I actually just reach out and video call them every once in a while just to see how they're doing and, tell them how much I appreciate. So.
Your team. So now your teams have departmentalized, and they have weekly calls, and there's a once a month global team meeting across the entire company.
And it's not just the calls. We have we recently migrated from Office 365 Microsoft to Google, so we actually have kind of a Google Sites place that a lot of the documents live. So, for example, when somebody new comes on, they go to Google Sites, and we have what we call an HPC ledger, which lists all the tools that we use. with all the training and all the video links and everything that they can go on and they can get to learn all the tools that they use. It used to be we had somebody had to do one-on-one with them. We can't do that anymore either. So it's not just the video; it's actually the training and some of the other tools like Google and Sites. And the point is we have agendas that everyone can update and modify. And we have a standard agenda for our accounting meeting, a standard agenda for tax, so people can go in and modify them. So this is what we're going to talk about this week. What's going on this week? What needs to get done? What are the issues I'm having? What help do I need?
Are those meetings are transcripts or notes taken of those meetings then published for you to access or other team members to access?
Well, I actually sit in on the departmental meetings because I have to have my say and know what's going on. But the agendas are there, and then they basically get updated. Yeah, so things get done. They get put on a to-do list for somebody to do, or they get crossed off as done. And I will say that those are for kind of the meetings. The other thing is we use Slack, where it's searchable, and we've got kind of Slack channels for each department and Slack channels for different topics. Yep. Where there's, I don't know how many Slack messages we have a week. It's thousands.
Right.
Going back and forth all amongst the team. So it's not just the meetings.
We have completely embraced Slack as a communication tool to stay always on. Okay, we have so many questions from the audience, but I actually have one more question for you, and I want to I actually have two more. Okay, so if it's a remote culture, that's different than probably what most people are used to. What would be your advice to a new hire who's starting out in a firm in a remote job in terms of like plugging in, starting strong, getting involved in the team when they don't go to an office?
That's a really, really good point. I had never thought about it like that, but what I would tell them is be communicative, reach out to people, don't wait for them to reach out to you, and whatever the tools that you use and whatever systems they have, use them, get to know everybody. Both by asking questions and also, chiming in. We use Slack, for example, we have a channel for Gusto and we have a channel for Bill.com, and we've identified what we call a guru for each add-on. So when someone has a question, they post it in Slack, and then other people can say, oh, I've seen that on this client. This is how you fix it. Be active and involved, and don't become a silo.
Right, and into it yourself. And then the last question for me is about, and I think I'm sort of asking this on behalf of the audience, is, you talked a little about when people didn't work out, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper about there because I want this to be kind of the warnings and making sure that you do work out if you find a remote opportunity. One is to be communicative, but like, can you just give a little bit of color around when people did not work out at HPC in the remote positions and what were the primary reasons for that?
I think they struggled with being on their own and maybe keeping themselves motivated and connected. We had a few that just never really got connected and got into the team. And within 90 days, it was just obvious. Then the work wasn't getting done, and then you find out things after the fact. That was one. I think it was the self-motivation, and one of them was I think maybe they were, and I think it's the communication. I think it's definitely the communication. Because hopefully the skills are right? It shouldn't be a skill thing. So it's being the self-motivated and being communicative with everybody and being involved. And of course, making sure the work's done on time. And when you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. It doesn't just because you're sitting at home doesn't mean that you can not do it.
No, I would say, in fact, the demand, the urgency, the need to deliver what you say what you deliver is even more so in a remote team because it has to function. It has to function on its own, right? It's a self-propelling system that must operate, and everybody's going to hold their rope.
And you just mentioned something else. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is the client touches. Every client touch needs to be a great experience, all the way from the lead to when we talk about signing them up to when they get onboarded. So we have a thing about response times for emails and phone calls and things like that. And especially when you're remote, when a client reaches out to you, you need to get back to them. Even if you don't know the answer, you need to respond. You can't wait 24 or 48 hours. And it gets down to the thing about learning how to communicate. And every client wants to communicate differently. Some you can never get on the phone. You just can't get them on the phone. Well, don't freaking call them. Send them an email. That's the way they want to communicate.
Right.
I hate it when people leave voicemail. voice messages because I'm so busy during the day. I finally get to the night where I'm going to return it and I can't call them back
Hmm.
because it's nighttime. Or if they send an email or give me a Slack message or a text, I can respond at my own time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, there's just nuances and pet peeves.
No, that's interesting. All right, so we have a ton of questions, and I'll give you a second to catch your breath, and I'm going to just kind of start asking the questions. So, oh my gosh, there's so many. You said there's going to be a lot.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no,
That's a good thing.
it's great. All right, and so my job is to curate the ones that haven't already been answered, but okay, how different is payroll for remote employees? Are you setting up as 1099 full-time employees? Like, how do you address that?
And that was a little bit of a challenge at the beginning, but no, we register to do business in the state and get an employee number and basically, so it's actually nice to hire employees in a state that you already have an employee from an administrative standpoint. Jeff knows what I'm talking about because when
Yeah.
we were advertising for new employees, we tended to lean towards the states we already had employees from that, administrivia. So we actually hire them as employees, and the challenges in that is when you start getting to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 states. Every state has their own rules. California has very strict rules about certain stuff. You need to, if you don't know it, you need to partner with somebody where you have access to that information and get the HR side too. Those are growing pains.
Um, okay, got a few questions about technology. One question was what were those accounting software again, along with Xero? Let me consolidate two questions from one question from two. Nikki wants to know to work for a remote firm. So let's replace that with to work for your firm. Do you have to have experience working with the programs you mentioned, including Xero, etc.?
Sure. That's a really good question. So it's interesting. No, you don't, but if you do, it's good. So at the beginning, when I was hiring a couple of years ago, I hardly find anybody that had Xero experience. Now it's quite a bit easier to find someone who's used it. But one of the things, when we start talking to a recruit, if they go out on their own and have checked it out and been on the Xero site and looked at the videos and maybe even in some cases actually started to get certified before we even hired them, what's that a sign of? They're motivated, they're self-motivated, maybe that's a good fit. So that would be my advice on that, whether it's us or somebody else. Do your diligence. Go to their website. All of our tools that we use are listed on our website. Be familiar with them, and if you can be certified, at least in a Xero thing, that's a bonus.
Yeah. I would encourage everybody to absolutely embrace and get to know Xero, Xero. As a follow-up to this, we offer a free live training to get certified in Xero. You should if you're not aware of it already, you need to, and it's cloud-based.
Wow.
And we're gonna.
That's a great offer.
It's $249 free training.
So what do they charge now? $249.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Xero firms are really growing. One of the other things I do in my spare time is I go around the country and teach other accountants how to move their practice to the cloud and how to grow your Xero practice. And many of them are hiring. And many of them are probably more so hiring remote than traditional firms.
The Xero firms are growing, and there's just a whole growth mentality. That's a whole other conversation. But you're right. I mean, you look at the ones that we're working with. We're seeing a lot of teams trying to hire. Got this question a couple of times. Generally speaking, are salaries higher? I mean, are salaries lower at remote firms than they are for equivalent positions at traditional firms?
That's another good question. So I wouldn't say they're lower because we basically, our compensation is kind of based on market. But it is interesting, if I'm going to hire a tax person and they're going to live in the city of San Francisco versus living in rural North Carolina, their cost of living is going to be half. Well, compensation is going to be different for sure, which is good for me if I hire them in North Carolina, bad for me if I hire them in San Francisco. But but I would say relatively, you don't really care what the salary is. You really care what it is compared to the cost of living. So, so I would say no, they're not lower, but it's relevant. It's relevant to the local cost of living. I'm not going to pay that person in North Carolina the same amount. I'm not going to offer them the same amount I'd have to hire somebody in San Francisco for the exact same skill set.
Right. Yeah. So you get the benefit of hiring based off of the locations, and I think the person that asked the question was wondering if they're located in Raleigh, North Carolina, would a job with you be comparable? Would it be higher or lower than the in-office jobs in Raleigh, North Carolina?
Um, no, I think it would be completely consistent. The only difference is you wouldn't have commuting costs.
Yeah. Right. You
And I want to add, though, different firms have different policies regarding bring your own device and internet and all that other stuff. And um, so those are things you might want to look out for and ask about what their policies are.
So you talked. This is a question about serving remote clients. Is it challenging to coordinate with clients who are in different time zones?
I haven't really had an issue, although I will say one of our uh, I guess markets that and verticals that we seem to get into is we deal with a lot of companies coming to the U.S. from overseas. So we got many clients in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. So at least at the beginning, a lot of times I was on the phone at night with people in Australia. And that wasn't great, but you kind of get what that window is. And now with Australia, we try to talk to them. Our afternoon on the East Coast, 4 to 6, they're getting up at 8 a.m. We can also have a person on the West Coast on because it's the middle of the afternoon there. So you just know in dealing with those clients, that's going to be your window. That's extreme time zones, not like
Yeah.
New York, San Francisco.
Right.
But so no, I haven't really had an issue.
Cool. Okay, so I got this question 3 times actually. Is do you train remote employees? And I imagine the question is geared towards like, are you training them? Well, I'm just going to
I
leave.
get it. I
What?
get it. Another really good question. That's probably the biggest challenge with being virtual and remote. So at the beginning, when I had the office, when the lady from New Zealand came in, I brought her to Atlanta for a week, put her up. We sat around the conference room, kind of got her up to speed on the clients and the tools, then she went home. And we kept doing that actually for a while we had the office. And now as we've kind of had this big spurt of growth and we started to now we have a director of technology, we've used the Google Ledger and everything, we tried to put some of that stuff where it's, searchable and on our kind of like our company wiki. So these are the 10 tools. Your first week, you have I'll say an agenda that basically you need to go and get familiar with these tools. Here they are. Here's the information. Here's the links. Watch the videos. Do the training. And the other thing that we do is we can kind of have like a little mentoring, which each person will spend some time with a different person in different departments to get familiar with the company and the tools and how we do things. And then we actually have kind of like a mirroring, where basically you'll mirror somebody for a little bit. And if you're a bookkeeper, and you're going to get to see what that bookkeeper does during the whole day and how they manage their day and how they deal with their clients and the tools that they use and what they do. That's really all you can do. And then basically, depending on what department you're in, you're going to be part of the departmental calls. You're going to slowly work your way up to get a full workload. We don't expect it to all happen in the first 30 days. It's like a 30, 60, 90-day period. It's still a challenge, but it's a lot better. We've gotten better at it.
Okay, so we got time for 1 or 2 more. This is actually one that I wanted to ask you. So do people actually take time off completely from work, or do employees generally need to work on vacation, so the cog in the wheel it gets done? Can people go somewhere and really unplug for a week or so?
Yes, and I actually encourage it, including myself, because I never used to do it. It is amazing what happens when you do that. I find myself, I have to go on a cruise ship, and then I have to turn off the internet. Otherwise, I just can't can disconnect. But no, we encourage everybody to actually truly take time off. The world's not going to stop. We're not doctors doing brain surgery. We're accountants. So, and that's one of the other things that get back to the tools and the project management and the teams. You are responsible for making sure your work gets done, and everybody fills in. can you help me out on these 3 clients for these 3 days when I'm off? Can you help me out on this? And everybody steps in for each other. So yes, you need to take time off. But it's funny, people, they want to stay connected. You almost have to force them to be disconnected. But I think it's really good to be disconnected some.
Well,
So no, it's not a requirement.
that's interesting. That's a whole topic, and like you gotta unplug. For me, it's FOMO. It's fear of missing out on opportunities or also problems. It is hard to disconnect. However, you'll go crazy if you don't. There's too much information flow, and yeah, cruise ships are good because a lot of them don't have internet connections at all. I like to go to the mountains. I like to go to North Carolina, not too far from you, and not have internet connection.
I went to New Zealand last year and for 3 weeks, and I met with all the Xero people and the partners and some of our clients down there. And I went on this tour through like the Fjordlands or whatever. And the guy said, as soon as we get to this point, you're off. No connection, no phone, no internet. So for 2 days, I was completely off. And I was like, you keep grabbing your phone and but it's a good thing to disconnect. Cruise ships I find are good. I said kind of like a timetable. Okay, if it's a 7-day, for the first 4 days, I tell everybody I am off. I am not. I'll check it on the 5th day if there's any emergencies and deal with them, but that's it.
Yeah.
Or something.
I think the misconception is that, okay, so you had your employee who went to Japan for a few weeks. He wasn't taking a vacation. He just has the flexibility to travel and work at the same time. That's different than taking a vacation and unplug and disconnect from work.
Correct. And he did things and did a sightseeing in the afternoon and did all that. But we had somebody else recently go to Cabo for 5 days, and they're going to take their computer, and I was like, take the time off. The world won't stop. If anybody needs you, we'll figure out a way to get you, but we'll be fine.
All right, last questions about hardware. Do you require staff to buy laptops, et cetera? Do you provide them? How does that work in your firm?
Yeah, our policy is you can bring your own device. However, most of the people now are getting new laptops when they come in. We're not so much worried about the security because we deal with that in a different way. We use a LastPass for kind of that password management and everything else. And everything is cloud-based, so there's really no downloading anything anyways. So it's really more about being able to have the speed and not get slowed down and do the job that you need to do. So we actually also recently switched from a PC to an Apple shop. So we've gone through all these changes in the last 12 months. So for people that want to continue to use a PC can, but all the new people, if they're getting computers, are getting Apple.
Nice. You guys have gone through a few changes over the past few years.
Yeah, crazy.
I love it. Okay, so there's a few other questions that you get answered, but we need to wrap it up. And I think, guys, what we may do is even do this again and dive in a little more detail. I'm fascinated. I have more questions, Bruce, but I'm here to let the audience ask questions. So I'm glad we had a good 15, 20 minutes of just their stuff. The question I got the most often was are you hiring? and
always hiring.
So
always hiring.
The other question I get is how do I find remote opportunities? And so I'll tell you guys a little bit of an egg on my face is when I first met Bruce. He said, "All right, great, we're remote. How does Accounting Fly address remote companies?" And I had to say, "We don't. We weren't thinking that way." And so currently we're not even allowing job seekers to find remote. So because of that, I have to tell you other places you can go. You need to check out things like Odesk and Elance, which I think they've merged and even changed their name. But in 2000, Upwork, yeah. So I'm on Upwork, UPWORK. So it is to my chagrin that I would have to give that name to you on a webinar, but whatever, you need to find opportunities, so I would check that out. And this year, there will be a fully searchable remote section on Accounting Fly.
Can I add something in there? So the hard part as an employer is we don't really care where they are, but you go on LinkedIn or you go on Craigslist and you have to post local. So it costs you, to post in 15 places, you got to post 15 jobs, and in LinkedIn it was like $300 a pop.
Right.
And you don't even know if you're going to get every place where the people are hiring. So it's definitely a demographic change.
So what we're going to do as a job board is essentially allow you to search for remote jobs, and what returns is just anything that's remote. As an advertiser, you'd have your own category in remote, and we might even sprinkle them into a few locations just to get the traffic, which is really what we did for you on this most recent hire that you made.
Correct.
But if you're in the audience, I would say also drop your resume in Accounting Fly, because employers are actively searching the resume database, and you can even put in your resume database that you're open to remote opportunities. And if you are interested, what's that?
Just going to add. I was going to add to that. I mean, our actually plan is to hire somewhere between 6 and 10 people in the next 12 months. So
6 to 10 in the next 12 months. So HPC just pulled down a few postings on Accounting Fly. So this is what I would recommend is if you'll send me your resume, if you're interested in having an interview and a conversation, it's jeff@accountingfly.com. And to be frank, this is not an easy place to get a job. And you've got to meet the criteria that they're looking for. However, I would encourage you to send me a resume, and we'll pass it along to the recruiting team at HPC. If there's a fit, they'll give you a call and set an interview. And I would encourage you to check out the websites I mentioned earlier with Upwork, because there's other opportunities as well. So 6 to 10 hires in the next 12 months. Is that right? 2016?
If we hit our forecast and projections.
And what's the mix between CPAs, bookkeepers, consultants in that?
So our model actually calls for us to add basically a virtual accountant every other month. So that would be junior accountant, senior accountant, bookkeeper kind of types. Probably a tax person in there at some point. Virtual tax, probably a tax preparer, tax junior. And then also we do a lot of cloud integration, where basically it's connecting the softwares, which you don't even have to be an accountant. You really just have to love technology and love moving data around. The accounting is just a bonus. So it's using all these tools and learning how to set them up and get them connected. That's kind of the new big thing, actually. So we'll be looking for people like that, people that love playing with the tools.
Does your tax virtual have to be a CPA?
Nope, we don't require any CPAs. That's a whole nother conversation about being a CPA firm versus being a non-CPA firm.
Right.
Many of the things we do now have nothing to do with being a CPA. Frankly, most of the things we do now have nothing to do with being a CPA.
But that tax position, you'd like 2 years minimum of tax work, CPA not required. Is that right?
For the one we just hired, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we might not be looking for an entry level at some point.
Got it.
We get resumes also through AngelList, believe it or not. There was another place too that people kind of post and looking for it. But it's all about kind of creating that culture, the place that people want to come and people like the way, and they can look at your website and see how you work and see that you're different.
On Accounting Fly, when a client has a website that looks like yours, it gets 3 times the applicants that the other get. It's because everyone learns about a job on Accounting Fly, then they go visit the website and see if the firm, is in tune with the mid 2000s and teens, and if it's not, they don't apply. So we like to remind firms that's not always our fault when people don't apply. Okay, the virtual accountant is like what is that all about? What are you looking for the virtual accountant position that you guys will hire?
When we hire accountants, we like for them, number one, to have, I don't want to say done bookkeeping, but be able to, do reconciliation and reporting, and then also have the skills to talk to the clients about their books. So it'd be great for client contact. When you're looking through, you can see what's going on in the ledger. What's this, what's that? Have you thought about this? And we have junior and senior accountants. One of the things that I know we're going to be looking for is someone that has some good financial reporting experience. But those are the accountant types. That we also actually, will do bill pay and run payroll and all that stuff too for many of our clients.
Cool. One point of wrapping up, if so, for those of you in the audience, thank you for being here. And if you want to send me a resume, somebody asked, are they hiring in California? So it's remote, and it's hard to get it. It's hard to get all of our collective heads around this. It doesn't matter where you are. The point is that it is a remote opportunity. What matters is that you can you drive, you have the skill set, the cultural fit, and et cetera, the attitude, right?
Culture fit, attitude, and yeah, and be able to work with the team. And we're already, I don't know how many people we have in California already. One, two, three, four. We have at least four employees in California, at least.
So send me your resume, Jeff at accountingfly.com. We'll send it over to the recruiting manager. So the other thing I'd love to know is if you guys would send me an email and tell me what you thought about this session. What did you learn that you didn't know? What was it valuable? I know it was, but why was it valuable? And anything you could say that we could pass along to Bruce and his team, just by way of thanking them for spending the hour. So with that,
Great.
we'll wrap. Bruce, thanks a lot. We really appreciate the conversation.
Nope. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everybody for participating.
We love what you're
Have a great.
doing, and we're excited to learn more. So have a great day in Atlanta. Good luck. Go get them, and we'll talk to you soon. All right?
We're having a ball. We're having a ball.
Us
So,
too. All right.
all right.
Bye for now. Thanks, everybody. I'll close up now.